So lately I've been up to shenanigans because the ballistic gel torso I used to use could be improved. Last time I used one of these, which must be back in 2018. Man, time really flies, doesn't it, Bob? Yeah, you tell him, tough guy. Last time I did that, I just put in plastic pipe with wooden dowels inside. It's just something to make the torso not that floppy. I found a 3D model of a ribcage. It's not medical grade, anatomically correct, but decent enough. And Blargy printed it out. This has been a long time coming because it's been trickier than expected due to mainly limitations of the printer size. So this had to be done in 4 parts, which I then had to glue together. I didn't expect it to be quite that tricky. The first attempt was a complete fail. I used JB plastic weld, which is supposed to be 5-minute epoxy. So I glued the 2 parts of the spine together and held them together for at least 5 minutes. Seemed to have set at that point, but no. The pieces actually drifted apart as the glue cured. By the way, if you ever need to separate epoxy, rubbing alcohol or mineral spirits work. You just got to soak it in. Eventually it softens it up enough that you can break the halves apart. Aligning all this has been quite tricky. I don't have enough hands, even with a person to help. Some parts are neatly aligned, others not so much. That's all right. I've seen firsthand how strong this epoxy is. Of course, the filament isn't exactly super close to bone, but definitely better than the pipes and dowels I used to use. And this will give the torso structural integrity, which is important because the ballistic gel in and of itself is very bouncy and just it's more like fighting a gelatinous cube at that point. So this is going to help give it that rigidity. I still have some swords left to test and review, some of which are rather thrust-centric, to the point where test cutting doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's where this Mortal Kombat looking prop will come in. I've also got some 3D printed armor to test. This should be interesting. I don't have high hopes that this will stand a chance against swords, but against knife slashes, it should do well. Against thrusts, probably not so much, but yeah, it's an interesting pattern. It's very flexible. As you can see, it's almost like cloth. And I spent the last couple of days expanding the stand I have here. Beefed it up there so it's a little sturdier. And put up the shelf here that the torso can stand on. So that should work reasonably well. So almost ready to cast the torso. But first, there's one thing I forgot to get. The red pom-poms are for the heart. So I got Mylar bags. If I were to just put balloons in there, the heat of the gel would pop them. These should be heat resistant enough to allow that. And I also got a balloon here. That could be like the stomach. I'm not sure yet what I will be able to fit. I have white balloons for the lungs. 2 smaller ones here, bigger one there, all a bit smaller because the ribcage, quite frankly, is pretty small. And the cotton balls in case the balloons don't work out, because this I can flatten a little more. I can generally shape more than I can the balloons. So I'll have to see what even fits. All right, the gel has been in the slow cooker for about 4 hours. Hard to estimate how much gel I should pour in. So the tricky thing is now I have to wait long enough for it to solidify that I can press the ribcage into it, but not so long that it hardens too far. But if I try to put it in too early, then it might just sink into it much deeper than I want. I keep it covered to protect the gel from sunlight and also dumbass dive bombing insects. Let's see. Is it ready yet? No, not yet. I've got some older gel left as well, but I want to use as much fresh gel as possible because this stuff here is pretty dirty, as you can see. And it's really hard to clean that up. You basically have to cut it into, or tear it into really small pieces, and then clean that. And if you rinse it with water, then you got to make sure that everything is 100% dry. So it's a bit of a hassle in that way. Remember what I said about the bugs earlier? This dumbass legit managed to get right in there. With the lid on too. But the lid has 2 holes. That's enough. Good job, buddy. Should be good now. Let's see. Just want a bit of a layer there to kind of simulate muscle tissue behind the ribs. Not too terribly much. Okay, there's not much space here at all, so I have to see if I can cram this in here. The balloon I don't think will work. Would make more sense to use a balloon for the lung, but I don't think it's going to happen. This is already going to be a little difficult. You might be wondering why I didn't put that stuff in earlier, even before gluing the segments of the ribcage together. And that's because I wanted to make sure that the gel fully envelops the ribcage. I didn't want to risk anything getting in between the ribs and the gel, which would weaken the entire thing. The problem is the ribcage isn't quite large enough. It should have been deeper to have a larger chest cavity, and a bit wider would have been ideal too. Well, I discovered a fatal flaw. Apparently, this epoxy is not heat resistant at all. Not even a little bit. Well, that's kind of a problem, but I can't change that now. Well, that's not great. The thing is shifted. I wanted this to be flush with the bottom of the mold, but that's always a problem. I guess I need to wait quite a bit longer for the gel to settle before I put it in. I guess the more I do it, the better I'll get at it, and the more I'll poison myself. I forgot that the fumes always give me a headache for a day. That can't be healthy to breathe in. I really don't need to be embalming my lungs. There's already microplastics in everything, right? Oh well. As it turned out, I didn't wait long enough that time, so the gel was a little too thick. Had to go back in the slow cooker yet again. That's flowing a lot better. But even though I had torn up some more gel and thrown it in, it still wasn't enough. Either way, I'm afraid if you want to know how well it turned out and see the tests, you're gonna have to catch the next video. That's my scheme to get you to subscribe and hit the notification bell and all the other nonsense that used to be completely unnecessary back in the old days when YouTube accepted that the act of subscribing shows clear intent that you want to watch stuff from that channel, but whatever. And no, it's not a scheme anyway. I just ran out of time. I ended up working on this for most of the week. It was clear I had no chance of getting the tests done in time for Friday, which is when I normally upload. So I decided to make this video about the process. And even that is a day late. A little bit different, but I hope you liked this anyway. Thanks for watching, and you might want to do the notification thing after all, just in case.
Whatever you say, bitch.